And we're back. I'm so sorry about that. My recording cut out. I'm so sorry. Anyway, today we're also going to get into our next video, which is apartment horror stories anyway. We're probably going to react to at least 2 of them. Because honestly, I've been living in at least 2 or 3 apartments by now. 2 apartments by now.
I live in a small studio apartment. I like my place a lot, even though it has some details that always
I don't live in a studio apartment. I don't think I ever could.
made me really nervous living here. The wall facing the street is basically just a giant window, and I also live on the 2nd floor, so my window is very close to the streets below. The marquee looks very easily climbable and gives direct access to my window. Even though that makes me a little uncomfortable, nothing really ever happened, and it just stopped bothering me a couple of months after I moved in. That is, until last week. Last Monday, I woke up at around 2 a.m. to go get some water to drink. Since the kitchen is right next to the side of my front door, I could hear something coming from the corridor as I filled up a cup. It wasn't coming from another apartment or from the streets. The noise had that very specific reverberation from an empty corridor.
Alright, to be honest, for me, my first apartment actually had 12 floors. I lived on the 9th floor. And to be honest, the first night I moved in, I couldn't shut my bedroom door. Because I had a big bed and it was blocking, and plus my apartment was kind of really small. And the first night I stayed there, I swear every night, for at least almost a week, I could not sleep, and my dog would always go in the living room and lay by the front door to the hallway, and there would always be like some feet there, and he would just be sitting there just growling, and it used to scare the living dead out of me.
I approached the door and could make out that the sound was actually some kind of trap beat playing on repeat. At first, I thought maybe that was just some drunk guy messing around with his phone before getting to his apartment, but after laying in bed again, I could still faintly hear the same beat coming from the corridor. It kept playing and playing until I fell asleep about an hour later. 7 a.m. rolls around and I'm woken up by someone ringing the doorbell. It was a cop. A bunch of them, actually. The landlord and some of my neighbors were also there. Even with the place really crowded, it was really hard to miss the trail of blood that went from the corridor window to the far end of the wall. The cops said that someone was leaving for work early in the morning when they came across the blood smears and then immediately called the police.
Okay, for me, it wasn't that exact. So it was more of like people stalking and like weird, real people that lived in my old building, and like it was like really, really creepy. Like real perverted. A lot of perverted people live there. Like some of them were really perverted. And then some of them were like really, really creepy. Like one night I was doing laundry. It was at 12, which was pretty stupid of me in the first place, but I didn't have any other blankets and sheets, so I had to go wash. And anyway, it was around, I think, 7. No, it was 8. It was around 8 or 9. And I was doing laundry, sitting on there, doing laundry, sitting in the laundry room. It was on the 2nd floor. And, like, usually lights are out and everything. But I swear, there was, like you could see, like, in the windows on or the lobby area where everyone could hang out. But I swear I saw some reflection just standing there. I don't know who it was, but they're, like, just standing there. It was the most creepiest thing to me on earth.
He questioned me and the neighbors. The place was scrubbed and we went on with our lives, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Every single day, I always come home and walk over where the blood was, and I always wonder what the heck happened in the corridor that night. Now, I was a little bit uncomfortable living here before, but now I'm definitely really spooked out.
Yeah, I would be too.
I wonder if I'll ever figure out what happened. When I was in college, I lived in apartments that weren't on campus but still called student housing. I saw this guy around that I thought was pretty cute. His name was Kiefer. He knocked on my door one day and he said he was the maintenance man and that he needed to change our AC filters.
He's a liar.
I was making dinner for my roommate at the time and for myself, and he commented that it smelled really good, so I invited him in to stay for dinner. All went pretty normal as we watched a movie afterwards. Totally innocent. At about midnight or so, I kept telling him that I was really tired, trying to hint for him to leave. My roommate had already gone to bed, so it was just him and me now. After telling him to leave because I was going to bed, he kept trying to talk me out of it, saying that I should stay up longer. He just kept taking forever, trying to drag it out.
I already said it, we don't trust this Kiefer.
When he was putting on his shoes, he then started crying that he had a cramp in both of his calves. He told me that he couldn't walk upstairs and that he didn't know what to do. I really wanted to go knock on his door to have his roommate come and get him, but I'm in a wheelchair and I couldn't go upstairs. We had an extra bedroom in our apartment that only had a bed in it and nothing else. He continued asking if he could sleep in the room, and I kept telling him no. We argued for like 10 minutes about allowing him to sleep in the extra bedroom. I was so freaking exhausted, I just went ahead and decided to let him. I locked my roommate's door and my door so that he at least couldn't come into our rooms. When I woke up the next morning, luckily he was gone and nothing was stolen.
You could sleep out in the hallway. I'm sorry, but I don't trust you. I don't know you. You could sleep out in the hallway. Here's a pillow or blanket.
I honestly should have reported it to the apartment complex, but I wasn't really thinking. A couple of days later, I heard someone knock on my bedroom window in the middle of the night, and I totally flipped out about it.
Girl, I wish.
It ended up being Kiefer, but obviously I didn't let him in. Then the next night, my roommate and I were in the living room, and then he came and knocked on our door. Ashley, my roommate, answered it, and he asked for me, and she said that I was asleep already. His response? No, I know she's not asleep. I looked inside y'all's window, so I know she's awake. Yeah, Kiefer was definitely a creep.
That's it? Is that it?
So, for some backstory, I moved from a very small town to a relatively large city. It was for university, and I was around 19 years old. Since I wouldn't be in the new city until around September, my soon-to-be roommate decided to look for a place for us to live in the fall. In mid-July, she finally found us a decently priced, newly renovated, close to everything apartment. It was on a pretty busy road in the city. Fast forward to September when it was time for me to move in. Myself and my parents get to the building, and it looks a bit disheveled from the front, and upon entering, the inside of the building was an absolute mess. Appliances in the hallways, plaster was running up and down the walls like a child had been given the material to play with, and the flooring was missing in most places. Since the apartment was actually kind of nice, and since it was my first ever apartment away from home, I was absolutely thrilled to finally have a place of my own. Now, this apartment housed many students, as well as the landlord and the superintendent, so it seemed like a relatively safe place to live, right? Wrong. My roommate had the door buzzer hooked up to her phone so that when someone rang, her phone would ring and she had the option to let them in or not. About a week after school had started, I was home since I didn't really have class until later in the day, and my roommate was at work. She texted me to let me know that someone had tried to buzz into the apartment, and when she answered, all she heard on the other end was an unfamiliar voice practically screaming,
"Let me in! Let me in right now!"
Luckily, my roommate had the sense enough
big bag wolf. I'm an asshole at times, I'm so sorry.
Not to let them into the building. About 10 minutes later, someone comes banging right on my door. Without saying anything, they just continued knocking for what felt like hours. Although
I've had this issue too, like literally had someone just come to my door and just knock and knock and knock and knock and knock and knock. And it would go on throughout the hours of the night. And then it was like the most scariest thing on earth. My dogs would go crazy and just go barking. And I'm just sitting there terrified.
it was probably only about 20 minutes in reality. I stayed in my room the entire time with the door closed because I was absolutely so afraid of who might be standing outside my door. Eventually the knocking stopped, and when I checked the people, the person was gone. I felt really relieved that I had avoided what seemed to be some kind of creep looking to get in my apartment for some reason that I really wasn't aware of. Nothing too strange happened again until about 2 weeks later. Again, I was home since I was sick and my roommate was at work. I should note that my roommate was a flight attendant for a small airline, and obviously she wouldn't have her phone if she was already in the air. As I recall, there was no one to buzz the door this time. So it's early morning and not too long after my roommate left for work, and someone came banging on my door. Of course, I didn't get up to answer it because I was still sick in bed, hoping that they would just go away. We weren't expecting anyone, no packages or friends. And besides, how would they get into the apartment if my roommate's phone didn't ring for the door buzzer?
True.
When I finally think whoever was knocking at the door has left, someone actually unlocks the door to my apartment and walks right in. I was mortified. I always sleep with my room door closed, so there was absolutely no way that they would have known someone was in there except by opening the door. Since my roommate was a flight attendant, I knew it wasn't her because her flight would have been gone by this time, so there was really no way she could even answer her phone since there's no service when they're up in the air. I was frantically texting her to let her know that someone was indeed in our apartment without our permission. Where we live, our landlord must give 24 hours notice before entering the property.
If I'm like really quiet, it means I'm like super focused and listening, and it's like kind of spooked, so.
As I lay in bed crying and shaking out of pure fear, the person seemed to have just walked around the living room area and then left again. As soon as I heard the front door shut, I ran and locked all of the locks and put across the chain that would keep anyone from getting in, even if they had a key. To this day, neither me or my roommate know if it was the same person or someone who had previously lived in the apartment. We have no idea who it could have been. We left that apartment building only a couple months after that and moved into a more friendly and seemingly safer neighborhood. Whenever I drive past that building now, I always get the creeps. I don't think that I'll ever forget what happened.
Alright then. Our next video is by the Meat Canyon. I know it's been a while since we reacted to any Meat Canyon video. So we're going to react to one called Behind Dreams Mask. Oh, I like the clap.
These documents are fascinating. The level of detail is remarkable. You say you're only an amateur in entomology? What exactly got you into the field?
I found my love of insects through my son.
Well, your research has been all the rage at the university. I mean, people won't stop talking about it. And I'll be honest, I think a lot of people were jealous that you reached out to me for help with your studies. Not too often an entomologist gets a house call.
I'm a good father. I love my son. But after that night, his body was just lifeless. I don't know how it happened. His body just began to decay. He wouldn't leave his bed. I would peek into his room and try joking around with him and say, "Why are you so sad, kid?" Like I used to. But by that point, he wasn't responding. His body was still decaying.
It's Zuko.
They don't tell you about the stench when the process is happening.
I will say it's getting rather late. I should be heading home. We can continue our discussion over email or...
Any good father would have done what I had to do.
What'd you do?
His friends kept coming over asking where he was, but they wouldn't understand. No one would understand that he couldn't. He wasn't himself. That's why I took him out of that school, threatening to fail him for not showing up. What do they know? I was the only thing that could keep him safe. No one needed to
Creep. Weirdo. Don't go to the house on the end.
know his secret. Imagine you lost your childhood to some kind of fluke, some accident.
Sir, I'm sorry for your loss, but please let me go.
Loss? You think my son is dead? Why would you say that? You think I killed my son, don't you? I'm the only person that can protect him.
No, I never said such a thing. You're just not thinking straight. Please let me go, and I won't tell anyone about this.
I had to become my son because he was transforming. You see? He had lost his sight by that point. I would wave my hands in front of his eyes to no avail. Medication didn't seem to help. The names just got longer and longer. They were just trying to give him normal pills. But that's not what my son is. He's the farthest thing from normal.
What is he? What is that?
He wanted to play his favorite video game, but couldn't. His hands were mangled, practically non-existent.
Let me lead, you fucking psycho!
So I would play the game for him, and I got good. I got so good. We would upload YouTube videos. Before you knew it, we had fans. People loved our videos.
Minecraft.
I would play with his friends, and I could see fragments of my son's happiness reappearing. We were becoming a family again. But social media was so cruel to me and my son. They would say so many hurtful things and accuse me of everything. The very fan base we built was turning on us, you see?
You need help.
I know. That's why I called you. The pressure and the hate from all of these people, it got to him. He started to isolate himself again. It was the last time I was able to see my son. Maybe you can help me figure out when I'll see my son again.
You're sick!
Oh no! Chaotic.
Don't go in there!
What, a chaotic or something? Is this chaotic because he wears the mask?
Oh, God, the smell. Where's the light? Oh. Oh my God.
Shut off the light! It's okay. Daddy's here. Daddy's got you.
What the
How much longer will he be in there? It's been months. I miss my son.
He's emerging.
Okay, I'm confused to like what the is going on here. Even my dog's confused. He's sitting there like, what is going on?
What is this?
My son! Beautiful. You're beautiful. Look!
The light.
What was that thing?
Me?
That's my son.
You got some issues, sir. That last animation was something. Next one is called